And we're on. All right, you guys, welcome back to Deep Naked Thoughts. I am your host, Val. And with me today, I got Joseph Frias, who is a football coach at Mayfield High School. And this is really exciting because I am from Las Cruces, New Mexico. And the Las Cruces versus football versus Mayfield was always like such a big competition. There's even like a movie about it. I will like insert a clip or a poster, but it is a really big deal. So the fact that I get to talk to Joseph right now is a big deal. But I actually met him through another interview process. So Joseph, how would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, how's it going, everyone? I just like to introduce myself. I'm the head coach over at Mayfield, the new head coach over at Mayfield High School, and just very excited person, to take over this job and opportunity. I'm also going to be their PE coach and their weightlifting coach as well over at the high school. So that's going to be my new job titles coming up.
Dang, that's really exciting. So previously, I was working for a different company and I had the honor to interview Joseph for a position. And I remember thinking, like, man, I would love to have this guy on our team. Like, he is just such a valuable asset. But really, he needs to be out like on a football field. Like that's his bread and butter. And so like I think sometimes rejection is redirection because man, like things just lined up for him and I think he's exactly where he's supposed to be. So Joseph, without the title, the degrees, without all of that, who are you as a human? Like what do you believe is your purpose in this lifetime? Like why football?
But as a person, I am very kind of shy at first, but you got to get me going a little bit. But then I open up, a very self confident person, very driven. I'm a leader. I really like to sit there and be the first in line type of attitude. The last one out. Football, it just kind of sat there and driven me because again, it's kind of one of those things that you work together with different types of people from the community, races, just dealing with a lot of things on your plate when it comes to football. It gives you a lot of, I would say, instincts about life and a lot of things that could sit there and prepare you for life, and I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
kind of sat there and sat me up to really fall in love with the game. Just because, again, it sat there and taught me a lot about myself and then let alone to work with people, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that I've obviously got myself into again because I'm dealing with kids now, so
Yeah.
again, one of those things that I sat there and I just kind of like, hey, this is my niche. I think this is where what, someone had a plan for me to do. And so now I'm here. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So how do you get to that level? Like take us through your origin story. Where are you from? Where do you start playing football? Who introduces you to the game? Like let's just start there. Where are you from and what does your journey with football look like?
So I'm originally from El Paso, the west side of El Paso, Texas. I actually come from the middle of actually a country club and kind of like I would say the west side of the Riverside area, I would say. So it's one of those things that, growing up on the west side, it's either one thing you do, it's either you do sports or if not, you kind of do something else. And so one thing that kind of helped me with sports was my father was a coach.
Mm,
So he actually got me into coaching or actually into sports. And then after that, my older brother was doing a lot of sports as well, too. So
mhm,
obviously being the chiple, as you know, being the youngest one out of the family and everything, you kind
mhm,
of look up to people. So my older brother was one of the people that I sat there and really looked up to. And then of course, with my dad being a coach, he kind of sat there and kind of drove me into being a sports person as well too. So yeah, so originally I'm from the west side of El Paso. My parents and my family are obviously, really big on sports. So that's what kind of sat there and really, introduced me into the life of sports as well. Yes, ma'am.
mm.
Yeah.
So did you kind of like the love of the game, like being in it, or did you like more the analytical, strategic side, going through the plays, kind of seeing like the players and kind of like a chessboard and being like, if I move this person here and if they do this, like what did you like about football?
I think it was more of just being able to hit people, to be honest with you.
Mm,
No, a lot of strategic, again, I think football is a lot like chess. You have to
mm-hmm,
be really smart and be able to put the right pieces in the right place, So again, the strategic level, but then also, I did like the physical level as well, just because again, you're able to sit there and kind of beat up a couple of people around you, but again, it was just one of those things that, just the test of what you have to go through, of course, football, you're playing in the hot summers on grass, it's very
mm-hmm,
hot and you just go through a lot, not only physically, but also mentally, because again, once you start getting physically tired, you also start getting mentally tired. So those were also things that I kind of sat there and I also enjoyed and sat there, like I said, showed me a lot about myself. So
mm.
yeah,
And then growing up, what position did you play and at what level?
I actually played quarterback growing up, yeah.
Wow, okay, very cool.
So it's kind of a funny story. So my dad was building our house out in
Mhm.
New Mexico at the time, and when he was doing that, I happened to grab a lot of rocks when I was 5 years old. And the construction worker guy, the manager at the time, was like, "Hey, Mr. Frias, I think your son's going to sit there and break one of the windows, you know?" And he's like, "Nah, I don't think so. I don't think he's got an arm." So sure enough, I heard that. I grabbed a rock and I threw it as hard as I could at the window, and it just completely shattered
Wow.
into pieces. And then he's like, "Okay, you know what? I think you got a shot at quarterback." So
Mm.
right after that, the next practice, my dad took me over there, was like, "Hey, I wanna try my son at quarterback." So the next thing you know it, that's what kinda sat there and put me in that position. So, yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm thinking of like the stages of life. Did you kind of like grow up and do like maybe flag football and then like play middle school and then high school? And then what happens? Like, what take us through like 18, 19 years old? Like, people are applying to college, people are getting their first jobs, people are moving away. Like, where are you and where is your mindset? And like, what do you want in life at that age?
So at that age, around 18 or 19, I ended up going to Franklin High School, which is actually a really, really big football program at the time. So
Mm,
that kind of sat there and really drove my drive for the love of the game because, again, I was dealing with the big football program, a lot of instinct of, hey, you know what? You're going into a big role if you're going to sit there and join that football program. So a lot of the things that I sat there and took in consideration was, you know what? If you're going to do this and you're going to make it a hobby, you better go all in on this. So
mhm,
again, I sat there and would dedicate summers, really take, a lot of off-season programs, join a lot of clubs and stuff like that, as much as I could sit there and do to really,
mhm,
hey, if you're going to do football, then this is what you ought to do. And I gave myself 100% all the time when I was out there. And I think that's what also opened up the eyes of people and coaches as well, too, to sit there and say, hey, Joey, I think you got a really a good shot at this, especially at the college level, because again, I started at a young age. I kept playing from the elementary level to the middle school level. Then from the middle school level, I ended up getting into high school, obviously at Franklin. And then
mhm.
sure enough, I was like, you know what, let me take a shot at this. So as I progressed in high school, I like I said, I learned the game very well, learned from a lot of different coaches, as I was growing up. So I think that's what kind of sat there and put me in the driver's seat to wanting to be a quarterback in this world. So yes, ma'am.
Dang. So then what does that personal journey look like? Does it look like a college scholarship? Does it look like being picked up and getting like a scholarship somewhere? Are like scouts? Like what does that actual process look like? Especially because football in Texas is really big, but it's
Yes,
also
ma'am.
extremely competitive. And I feel like maybe I'm being biased, but maybe it's even more competitive out of Texas just because Texas has like really big expectations. So, like, what does that journey actually look like, or what did that journey look like for you?
To be honest with you, it was a lot of, reaching out to colleges, because again, you can only do so much. And then of course, being from El Paso at the time, especially when I graduated, El Paso was on the brink of slowly getting football and, progressed over to, of course, to the east part of Texas. East
Mhm,
Texas, you dealt with a lot of really, really good teams. So El Paso teams would make it out into the playoffs, but we would kind of get knocked out early, and you still kind of see it nowadays. It's been a long time since an El Paso team has really kind of made it far. So I think just sitting there and being consistent with reaching out to coaches, sitting there having really good highlights and film like that, and just staying on top of, hey coach, are you interested? Would you be interested in me and the things that you see on the film? I bring a lot to your team and stuff like that. That's what kind of sat there and got me a lot of scholarship offers. So during that time after high school, I ended up going out to California to a junior college on a full scholarship and actually played out in California at the time. So from my high school, I ended up transitioning out there to California and went to a junior college that was really, 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 I would say, standout junior college at the time in California. Yes, ma'am.
and so then what happens after playing in college? Is it like, does the hopes just keep going higher for you? Like, just saying like, "Do I wanna just end this and do this for college, and then maybe, like, I'll get a career or do something else?" Or was in your heart always like, "I just wanna keep playing football and I love football," so maybe, like, looking towards the NFL? Like, what did that journey look like for you? So I'm gonna briefly mention, like, my journey was different. I ended my athletic career at 18, and my athletic career was martial arts, and I was just so hurt. I was, like, limping to class. I had, like, crutches, and I was just like, "I can't do this, like, full time. I can't be a college student full time and do this on the side and also work because I had to work. Like, I needed to buy my own books, my own gas, and I was just like, "Something's gotta give, and my body can only take so much." So, what happened after college? Like, yeah, where was your mindset at?
So my mindset at the time, especially after college, I really wanted to try to make the NFL. That was
Mhm,
my goal and ultimate dream, especially since I was young. And like I said, I was consistently playing football, from 5 years old up until I was pretty much, 18, 19 years old with that dream of, hey, you know what? I really want to take this full time and let that be my job. So NFL was, my dream and something that I tried to sit there and get myself in. But like, we talked about before, I did not get that opportunity. I had a lot of invites to sit there and show my talent and stuff like that. But at the time, I guess it just was not the fit for the coaches in the NFL. So, like all things, I thought, okay, life is over. I'm not going to sit there and play football no more. I kind of sat there
mhm,
and took a hiatus, as a matter of fact, from after college, especially without getting picked up from the NFL. So
mhm,
at the time, opportunities did arise because I ended up getting picked up for semi-professional football in the United States, by a team called the Oklahoma Thunder. So I
okay,
actually went from a junior college in California, got a full scholarship actually to the University of Nebraska in Omaha. And then
mhm,
from there, I got picked up by this Oklahoma team because they ended up going traveling. They're a travel team that goes from the California all the way to the East Coast in New York. So
mhm,
again, it was just one of those things that I was like, you know what, let me just keep going because maybe another window and an opportunity might open up later in my life. So I ended up playing semi-professional for this Oklahoma Thunder team, and one season after I played for them, I almost got them to the championship. We were actually one game away from the championship. So
mhm,
again, like all things, it opened up doors and opportunities, and you start networking with people and start meeting people. So one of
mhm,
my good friends on the team was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but there's a European football league out in Europe, and they also pay
mhm,
you to sit there and go out there and play." And so I was kind
mm,
of like, really? That kind of really caught my interest real quick because I was like, you know what? That's another opportunity to sit there and get paid. And I was like, Europe, that's beautiful over there. So next thing you know, and I put myself on a free agent website, and all these European teams just started like messaging me right away, like, "Hey, do you have your passport? Are you ready to sit there and play more football in your life?" And so I kind of was blown back by and overwhelmed by how many people sat there and wanted me. So I talked to my parents over a long talk and everything, and I was like, "Hey, there's another opportunity besides NFL. I can go out of Europe and play football." So my mom,
mhm,
as a matter of fact, who I'm really close to, she sat there and she goes, "Joseph, you need to do this. You need to sit there and jump on it right away and, really take a shot and really, open up this opportunity for yourself." So I messaged some teams back. I sat there because another great thing was you get to negotiate your contracts.
mm,
So I started negotiating contracts right away. And then next thing you know it, I was on a flight out to France, Paris, France, as a matter of fact. So I ended up going from junior college to playing very good D1 AA college football to semi-professional football. Now I got myself on a flight out to Paris, France, to play professional football out there. So that's kind of set there inside my journey as far as what I was going to do with my life. Yes, ma'am.
wow, so what did that look like for you? Just, being from the States to like experiencing European culture, French culture, and like, what did that look like? Like, do Europeans like football? Is that something that's like really big over there? Like, I don't know, like, I've actually never heard of this side of like football in like Europe. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think of like football soccer, and I know that's like really big worldwide, but I did not take like France, for example, to be football
Yes, ma'am.
fans.
Yeah.
So, like, what did that journey look like?
It was very interesting, to be honest with you. I was kind of scared too, because again, like you said, you pointed out, we're from the States. So at the time, all you read about with the European was just like wars and everything, and that type of stuff. So I was kind of sitting there intimidated and scared at first, but they were very welcoming, met me right off the plane, sat there, had a lot of, people, a crowd sat there. I was kind of like the Tom Brady, let's just say, of the Paris, France world at the time. So it's really sat there, opened up my eyes, and I had a lot of fun. The only thing that was kind of different was the language barrier. But
Mm,
of course, yeah, some Europeans, they sit there and they take English as their, like their second language. So that's what also
mhm,
kind of helped, is a lot of them also knew English. So I was
mm,
able to break that barrier. But then there was times like when they were talking with each other, I was just like, whoo, like
yeah,
blown over my head with what they were talking about. So great culture, a great experience in my life. Like I said, it opened up doors and opportunities because unfortunately in Paris, France, I ended up playing 5 months for the team, but then I broke my foot. So it was kind of one of those things that where they're like, "Hey, we thank you, you did a good job. So you know what, we're gonna send you home." But like all things, I was very, like, hey, I want to keep doing this. That was so much fun out in Europe. So I ended up right after that coming home, spending about 4 months recovering on a broken foot. And then
mhm,
again, I kept checking my messages, and a lot of teams were still interested in me. And they're like, "Hey, you know what? We still want you back out here in Europe." So
mhm,
after 4 months of recovery, I was back on an airplane out to Germany. And
Mm,
for I would say for 8 years, I spent the next 8 years after I was in Paris, France, out in Germany, just bouncing back and forth, playing for different teams and negotiating
mhm.
contracts and stuff like that. So, to sit there and go to Germany also and then play all over Europe, I mean, it was just what an experience. I mean,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
I was literally playing on, like I said, European soils with like a lot of history. And then not only that, it was like I was able to go to like different countries at the time and see so much different cultures and stuff like that. So again, it's been amazing, experience in life. I mean, of course, it's not NFL, but having the ability to sit there and go to Europe and do that and kind of be like the European Tom Brady over there, I was in love. So,
Mm.
yes,
So
ma'am.
did you wind up, learning any French while you were out there? Did you pick it up?
I didn't pick up French too much, but I
Okay.
did pick up a lot of German, so I ended up
Oh,
picking up a lot of
interesting.
German. Yes, ma'am. So I
Very
ended
cool.
yeah, so I actually speak German, and as a matter of fact, when I get a chance, when I'm not too busy with football, I try to visit Germany as much as I can, often a
Wow.
frequent flyer. Yes, ma'am. So,
That's amazing.
yes, ma'am.
Food, what kind of food did you try or like, or did you, I don't know, actual like French cuisine? Like, did you end up liking French food? I don't know, like things that maybe we don't get here as much, like Americans, like the scallops, or like, yes, we get scallops, but like
Yeah.
just their seafood is a little bit more fresh, and then the way they cook it, things like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any appreciation for like French food or German
I
food?
both actually. The French, they were really into wine, cheese, and crackers, like and their portions were really small. So that was the
Mm-hmm.
one thing I had to sit there and get used to as well too. Because not only in France, but also in Germany, it was like you have some places where the portions were very small, but I mean everything that was out there, it was all self-made. So to be honest with you, I really felt the difference also in my body as well too. I could sit there and
Mm,
get really cut fast, just because it was self-made and there wasn't too many ingredients that you would sit there and add on, so and just
mm-hmm.
I think the way they ate also is like phones were away and it was more interaction as far as like communication and talking and stuff like that. And like very open too. You didn't think that like you would think that they'd have a lot of like closed mind people out there, but actually they're like
Mm-hmm.
when they would look at you, they would kind of be like, "You're American, aren't you?" And I'd be like, "Whoa, how did you know right away?" They're like, you're the way you dress, the way you stand out, of course, and what you're eating is not the usual typical European food, So, but again, I sat there and just opened up my mind and really tried a different lot of culture cuisines and stuff like that, and it was just amazing. I sat there, and that's why I always go back. To be honest with you, just not only just because of the love of the cultures and stuff like that, but the food is just. And another thing is, I love the beer and I love the chocolate out there, especially from Germany.
Mm.
Oh my goodness, ma'am, it's amazing. To be honest with you, so
Wow, dang, that's amazing. That's a whole different conversation than we have, but wow. Okay, so then you're touring in Europe, you're eating great food and all the good things, and then what happens? Like what brings you back to the States?
So I was out in Europe, as a matter of fact, all the way up until COVID,
Okay.
and then COVID ended up happening. And so I was kind of like, you know what? I haven't been home in 8 years. So I really miss my parents and I really just miss, being back home. So I sat there during the COVID time. I made a choice. I told my team, I was like, you know what? Thank you guys for everything. I appreciate it. But I think this is kind of retirement time, because also at the time I was getting older, so and just again, with the football being such a physical sport, it was taking a lot on my body, so I
Mm-hmm.
just sat there and kind of really had a deep conversation with myself. And you know what, I was like, you know what, I gotta go help my parents out because they're getting older as well too. So during COVID, I sat there and I moved back to the United States and really
Mm-hmm.
helped out my parents. And then my dad's actually a HVAC; he does air conditioning. So during that time when COVID was, of course, a lot of people were staying at home, so I would sit there and of course we would get calls nonstop, and trying to help out people with their air conditioner during the time. So that's what I kind of came back and sat there and did was help out my father with his business here in El Paso, man. Yes, man.
Mm, wow. And so then what brought you back? Because and I really want to ask this question in a way of like feelings, but
Yes, man.
retired from my sport at a very early age, and I think I was just burned out and I just needed a break, and I didn't know how to like rest back then. I was just like, I'm just done. Like yeah, like I feel like I broke up with the sport, and I was doing this since I was 4. But then after a few years, I was like, something kept calling me back, and I was like, okay, like I don't want to compete anymore. Like I've been there, done that, but I would love to coach and I would love to teach. So when did you have that aha moment of like, maybe not a traditional job, because I think a lot of athletes like they're just like, "Oh, just get a job." But actually thinking like, "Hmm, how can I make a living doing this? Maybe not as a player, but as a coach." Like, how did that thought happen?
As a matter of fact, of course, COVID ended up coming to an end, and then life started getting gotten back to normal. So there was a lot of openings across in El Paso and New Mexico for coaches jobs. So my father, of course, being the coach that he was, kind of sat there and had a conversation with me and was like, "Hey, I don't want you on the roofs with me all the time. You need to find out something that you're good at, something that you love to do. And I really think you're going to be good at coaching, son." So he kind of sat there and opened up that door for me. I really went home and had deep thoughts. And then my mom's like, "Hey, you know what? Your dad's right. You're really good with kids and stuff like that. So I think you need to sit there and get yourself into coaching and start getting paid for this." So I ended up right after COVID going out to New Mexico, out to Gadsden Middle School, and ended
Mhm,
up applying for a coaching job. And during this
mhm,
time, when I was having an interview and just talking with my principals that were doing the interview at the time, the main principal at the time was like, "Hey, you're seem like you could be more than just a coach. Do you have your degree?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And she's like,
mhm,
"How do you feel about being a teacher?" And I
mhm,
just was kind of blown back. I didn't really think about really kind of getting into teaching, especially because I've always been a football guy, but I sat there and I was like, "You know what? Let me have a deep thought about this, and I'll go home and I'll let you guys know." So sure enough, I went home, had a conversation with my parents, and they're like, "This is a great opportunity for you, Joseph. You need to sit there
mhm,
and really, and take advantage of this because I think it can open up doors and opportunities for you." So sure
mhm,
enough, I reached back out to them. I said, "Hey, I'm really interested in becoming a teacher and also your all's coach." So sure enough, within I would say a week, she was like, "Okay, we're gonna hire you. Come be our teacher, come be our coach as well, too." So I would have to sit there and say right after COVID, that's what really opened up the doors and opportunity for me to become a teacher and a coach, ma'am. So I would say
mhm,
that's how my journey to sit there and become where I'm at now really started for me, was just pretty much off a football interview that opened up the door for me. So yes, ma'am.
mhm. So now I really do want to kind of talk about mindset and like what that coach's mindset looks like for you. I think on my end, being an athlete, like the physical for me was easy, like training, waking up early, eating, fill in the blank. Recovering and resting was actually not the best thing that I was good at. I think that's probably like why I suffered so many injuries. Was like learning how to rest. For me, it was just like if I work more, if I put in more hours, I'll be better. And actually learning that recovery is like super essential. It's like actually sometimes the best thing you could do is just sit down and like ice your leg. Like sometimes doing nothing is better. But what does a coach's mindset look like for you? Like as a coach, I feel like I feel like sometimes coaches do more than like the job description, but sometimes you're a therapist and sometimes a nutritionist and sometimes like you're having your students or your what is it, your team do PT and sometimes you're doing them like they're doing conditioning. So like it's a whole broad spectrum and then sometimes they need life advice and also sometimes you're telling them not to get in trouble and you're saying like, "Hey, I need you here at 6 a.m. tomorrow." So like, no, you cannot go out and be up all kinds of late and you're also, all the things that I remember being an athlete, like my coach would be like, there will be no smoking or drinking because that's gonna affect your like lung capacity. And like there like I will not have these kinds of players on my team and like give us all of the things that coaches do because it is a long resume of like it's so much. So just tell us of your
Coaching
job.
comes with a lot of territories, ma'am. You nailed it right
Yeah.
on the head right there. I mean, you deal with a lot of people, you deal with a lot of different attitudes, you deal with a lot of, I would sit there and say characters in the sense to where, yes, you are a therapist, you are someone's dad, you someone's role model, you got to be consistent with this, because the minute you're not being consistent with it and you're not showing up for the kids, they're going to see right through you, especially this generation. I'm kind of split in between the old generation and the new generation, so I try to sit there and bring both worlds together, and I think that's what attracts me to these people nowadays, because my energy, discipline, again, like I said, being consistent, just showing the kids and the community that you're going to be there has a lot to do with, who you are and how you're going to define yourself and what you're going to leave. So again, that's one thing, that I've learned from being an assistant coach. As a matter of fact, I started as a graduate assistant. So being a graduate assistant to an assistant coach to an assistant head coach, now to being the guy that's in the driver's seat, I think it's sat there and played a big role onto sitting there and teaching me a lot about different things. And then, of course, like I said, just dealing with a lot of different people. So you got to be open minded with people, and then on top of
Hmm.
that, you got to sit there and see the different struggles, the different types of things that people are not only going through with, at school, but also, at home. And also a lot of people and a lot of kids, they don't have that maybe at home direction where they sit there and they come to lean on me a lot.
Mhm.
So again, it's a lot of conversations that you sit there and you just try to be positive and without, having a lot of problems for people, you try to find solutions. So I
Yeah.
think that's the one thing that I sit there and I try to sit there and I push for. Okay, tell me the problem, but then what is going to be our solution for this? How are we going to fix this? What are we going to do? And the one thing also I am a very big on it as a coach is being an educator as well too. I sit there and I push my kids to sit there and hey, football comes second. That's why we're called student athletes. You're going to go and you're
Mhm.
going to make sure you're sitting in front, you're listening, you're paying attention, you're participating. You're actually going to be worried about getting an education because I'm going to tell you what, football doesn't last forever. And I tell them, I'm a prime example, guys. I played professionally, I got paid for it. But then again, here I am now sitting here and look what I'm doing now. I said, in education and what you guys learn with your mind is going to sit there and last you a lifetime. And not only
Yeah.
that, sets you up for life. So, and that's also why I love football so much. It brings, it shows you how to work with different people. And
Mhm.
like I said, different cultures, different, just different attitudes and things that you're going to sit there and deal with as far as a coach. So again, just being able to sit there and kind of put yourself in people's shoes also as well too as a coach, and deal with the
Mhm.
that kids are dealing with. And but then again, don't let them see that you're going to slack off on them as well too. Because again, you need to be very strict and firm and stern with what you're doing. Because if
Mhm.
not, like I said, if you're going to be the leader, then you better show people that you know how to lead. So I think
Yeah.
that's why I sit there and I have the mindset. And then also, don't be afraid of failure, and challenges. If you're going to sit there and do it, then do it. Then obviously
Mhm.
take the good and then the bad also as well, but then learn from it. So that's kind of my mindset. And then also, I'm also a player's coach. So if the kids are like, well, can you do it? Yeah, let's go. And I'll go out there and I'll do it with them. So I think that's
Mhm.
also another thing that the kids are kind of and the community are getting used to because again, I'm still kind of young at the sense. I try to hide the gray as much as I can, but I sit there and like I said, I really bring high energy to what the people are looking for. And it brings me, to where it's football is what I love to do. So being out there is just like for me, it's home. So
Mhm.
my mindset is bringing family together, bringing the team together to the community, going out, showing my face to people. As a matter of fact, we had a golf tournament yesterday. I'm horrible at golfing, but
Mhm.
again, just being out there for even with the golf people and stuff like that, I think that goes a long way with people. Yes, ma'am.
Mm. What values do you try to instill in your athletes? For me, I am a podcaster. I also coach, so that's something that I can't like let go of. I feel like it's kind of like at this point in my DNA. But how do you teach them like resiliency or how do you teach them confidence? Like one of the things that I like to say is like confidence is built with evidence. And it's just like, hey, if you can wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning to be here and run, or like you can do this, if you can do the push-ups or get yourself to the gym or eat the food that maybe you don't want to eat. Like if you can do the hard things, then you can do all these other hard things. It's like that mindset. It's like you're seeing it, you're doing it, so you can do it here. Like just apply all that and like apply that here. So like how do you get your kids who are like, "No, coach, I'm not good at school," or like, "No, I hate this class," or like that teacher's mean to me, or I'm thinking of just like high school and like the things that they would say. Like how do
Yeah.
you coach your athletes outside of just football?
What I'm really big on, like I said, is the education. And what I do is I have a behavioral sheet, kind of like a progress report sheet. And what it also does is not only tell me the grades, but it tells me, the personal experience that they're having with the teacher.
Mhm.
Because again, the kid might think, oh, this teacher doesn't like me. But then in the background, it's kind of like, hey, he's just not trying, he's just not participating. So if you can kind of sit there and get his confidence to be more socially aware of what's going on and just participate, that's going to change his grade from a D to a C coach easily. But he just kind of sits there and kind of stays in the back and sits quiet. So one of the things that I push for is, hey, you got to be up front. You got to be the guy, that football guy that shows up on time, and if not, be early to class. A lot
Mhm.
of these guys, well, I got to walk my girlfriend to class. Like, well, then make her walk you to class because you have a lot more to lose than her. Okay, so those are the little things, and I think just staying consistently with that, and just keeping an open communication with everyone, reaching out to the
Mhm.
teachers, and then obviously showing them that, hey, this guy cares. So
Mhm.
if he's caring about his students and his athletes, then obviously, maybe that's going to sit there and change his kid's mindset. And the other thing I try to sit there and I tell kids is, well, this teacher doesn't like me. And I'm like, well, make her like you.
Mhm.
Do something that's going to sit there and put a smile on her face. Give her an
Mhm.
apple, give her some chocolate, just those little things. Remember her name. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Even the little
Mhm.
respectful things like that. Cause that's another thing. I get a lot of kids that Yeah, oh, and I'm like, "No, no, no. We're not gonna talk like that, we're gonna be
Mhm.
respectful. We're gonna have some sense of, and apply, things that are gonna have to happen in real life that are also gonna deal with here in the football field, So,
Mhm.
again, I think just being able to have a whistle and a loud voice, it just sits there and gives you the sense of feeling like, "Hey, I'm the boss, and you better listen, because if not, just like all things, if you don't show up to work, if you're not consistent, if you're not doing the right things, well, like all things, guess what? Hey, you're gonna have to find another opportunity somewhere else."
Yeah.
So those are things that I sit there and I try to apply to the kids and just really sit there and show, hey, if you need extra help too, guess what? I'm here. And then the thing about me is I'm always an hour before my time that I'm usually set there, just because again, I want
Mm.
to be the first one in, last one
Mhm.
out. So I sit there and say, hey, stay with me after, or if not, show up with me before and let's get this done some way or another, because again, we live in a world too where technology is our best friend right now too. So we'll be able to
Yeah.
find the answer to everything. So that's one thing I tell the kids, I wish I could have the ability that you guys have, because I don't know, probably same thing with you. We used to have to dig in books. I remember carrying 7 books in
Yeah.
with, looking like this when I'd walk home. So again, it's
Mhm.
just one of those things that just pushing that mindset that, well, I can't do it. It's just like, yes, you can. It's just a matter of, hey, believing in yourself, first of all, and then not being afraid to ask for that help. Cause I think that's also another thing with what happened during COVID with these kids is we lost a lot of that social interaction with people.
Mhm.
So I think that's another thing that kids kind of sat there and got shy and quiet. But I think once you break that ice, they're going to sit there
Mhm.
and be like, hey, you know what, coach, you're right. All I did was have to sit there and raise my hand and participate. Now, my teacher really likes me. And I think those are the little things that just giving the kids self awareness and confidence. Cause also, too, when we're having football meetings, I tell the kids to come up here up front and present themselves just to also
Mm.
get that social. And hey, because I think one of the biggest things, like all things, public, speaking and just being in front of a camera and all that stuff, most people either like it or they don't like it. So again, with like all things, like practice. You got to practice everything, then practice makes
Mhm.
perfect. So I think those are the little things that I try to instill into these kids in the community to sit there and help them. And then again, I guess, just letting them know my door's always open. Don't
Yeah.
ever, like I said, I'm a very open-minded person. I may not have the right answer for you, but like I said, let's find a solution for it, how we can get better in this world. So yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Wow, I really, really like that. I really like that you're doing that for our youth. Again, like this just comes back to like, I mean, you're giving back to our community. Those kids will grow up to be, who knows, maybe cops or lawyers or doctors or, fill in the blanks. So that's who you are coaching. This, which leads me into my next question. And I do think that life moves in cycles. Everything ends, like elementary school ends, middle school ends, high school ends, a football career ends, like people retire, everything ends at a certain point. So, I mean, maybe this might resonate with you, but there's a lot of people that you played in high school with who like never played football after high school. And then some of them went on to play college, and then like you went on to play professional for Europe, but a lot of people after high school, like they will never play again. So how do you prepare them for that reality also, that like there's a life outside of football and that some of them will pursue it and that some of them won't? Like, is that kind of like a reality check that maybe you have with some of your seniors?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, I go through that all the time with the kids nowadays. A lot of these kids also are just out there playing football as a hobby. I have
Okay.
about a few sophomores and juniors that are in the ROTC program that already kind of know, hey, coach, I'm going to go in the Air Force, or I'm going to sit there and I'm going to go in the Marines and stuff like that. So I think as a coach, and again, someone that's a role model and someone that they look up to is, support them in that.
Mhm.
Show them, hey, you know what, that's what you're going to do. That's great. But let's stay on top of it. Let's make sure we got the good grades so that way you're able to sit there, be able to pass the test or whatever it is that they want, from you in that life or that role that you're going to sit there and take on. And I
Mhm.
guess, like I said, just being able to support them in that, because there are some kids, like you said, that are just, that's not going to be their path. And again, their path ends right there and then. So I guess, like I said, just preparing them for that role and making them understand that, hey, in football, and it may not be for you, but guess what? You might have a different role, as a banker, as an electrician, like me and you, as teachers, educator, and hey, you may not be a coach, right away. So again, I feel like, just supporting the kids and giving them confidence in what it is that they want to do. So that way they can feel good about, hey, my time with coach and my senior year is coming up. So this is what I'm going to do. And just giving them confidence in that and then being able to show them and support and be able to, hey, you're going to do it, because everything that we did in football and in the classroom is leading up to this moment right now. So just
Mhm.
again, just, being consistent as far as the support with the kids and stuff like that. Because, like I said, they really lean on you as far as a coach and a teacher and a mentor. So I think
Mhm.
as far as being able to sit there and then just let them know, hey, no matter what, I got your back. No matter whatever it is you go do and you fell at it and you come back, you don't know what you do. My door's always open and come out the conversation. Hey, coach, it didn't work. What should I do? And little things like that. So I was at a different high school before this. So that's happening right now. I have a lot of kids asking me about college opportunities and stuff like that. So again, I sit there and I say, hey, whatever your heart feels and whatever feels best for you, take it, do that opportunity. But then again, if it doesn't work out, don't be afraid of trying something else, because,
Mhm.
like I said, I went down that road a lot. I sat there and I had a lot of different opportunities and things like that. So I sit there and say, if it doesn't work out, don't give up. Don't also
Mhm.
give up on your dreams and goals, because you're also young and ambitious. So sit there and kind of keep that drive. So those are the things that I really try to sit there and instill the kids and just really prepare them for them. Like I said, just sit there and being for the kids. I think that goes a long way with kids. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking, and maybe there's a coach that you can think of that you're like, oh man, that coach changed my life, or that coach, man, he never gave up on me, or that teacher, or fill in the blank. When these kids leave, when they leave high school, like, what do you want them to remember about you? Or like, man, he was strict, but man, he made us great, or man, like he always, had a smile on his face. Like, what do you want the students to remember about you?
I think that's a great question there. Just to remember me about how I was as a person, again, being a leader, my high energy, doing the little things correctly in life. That's what I really tell the kids, even though it might seem a lot, but just doing the little things in life correctly.
Mhm.
Just being able to sit there and, even if it's 20 years from now, just having the kids come back and be like, "Coach, how you doing?" You look
Mhm.
old and you're getting pushed around, but at the same time, I think that's the sense of feeling that I really like to sit there and have for the kids. Like you said, just leaving a legacy of good football, winning, a good experience for the kids, and making them understand that if you believe in all that type of stuff, that you're gonna be able to do a lot of great things in your life and world. So I
Mhm.
think just sitting there and giving them that sense of confidence, because again, you deal with a lot of kids that you don't know what they're going through at home. So, if you're their shed of light, when they come to football or if not even to the classroom with me, I think just sitting there and just, again, giving them that confidence and being able to sit there and say, hey, you can do this, because a lot of
Mhm.
people aren't told that, or if not, being able to sit there and have someone tell them, hey, you know what, you can do this. You believe in
Mhm.
yourself, believe in everything that you've been going through, trust your instincts, trust, everything that you've learned and sit there and do it, because like I said,
Mhm.
we talked about earlier, you're going to fail in life, but also those are life lessons that you sit there and you go through that are going to make you who you are as a person and mold you into a life experience. I should sit there and say, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of you pouring into students and their mindset and their self-belief. But who poured into you? Like, who inspired you growing up, whether it was in football or not in football, but like, who were your mentors and who inspired you?
Well, I still deal with him every day. Like I said, my dad really sat there and pushed me. My older brother as well, too. He has always been a role model. My high school coach, Coach Tony Grijalva, he actually retired from El Paso district as a Hall of Fame coach. He had a really big impact on me. He was the first coach in high school that gave me a chance and opportunity to play quarterback and really sat there and drove me to learn and love the game and really had a inspiration on me. As a matter of fact, I still invite him out to my high schools to come and talk to the kids and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So he's another big mentor as well. And then obviously, my college coaches as well too. They really instilled a lot of belief and really, taught me the game of football. So those are guys that I still have communication with, and they sat there and they moved from really small jobs to like Division 1 jobs right now. So just keeping clear communication with those guys still, those are the people that I kind of really still look up to, and those are the people that had a lot of inspiration in my life and kind of sat there and put me in the position I'm at today, really fall in love with the game and obviously wanted to be the leader and the head coach for a program. And obviously Mayfield, oof, I don't know if you know about them, but they are such a great program. They have 8 state titles. They've
Mhm.
had the same family for the past 3 decades. So it's big shoes to fill, but I'm very excited. I'm up to the challenge. I'm overwhelmed and humbled.
Mhm.
And I think the community of Las Cruces should be looking forward to it because again, like I said, kind of want to stamp my own legacy and my own goals and things that I want to sit there and believe and bring to the program. So those are the things that I think the community should be looking forward to because like I said, you're gonna see me on the sidelines. I'm very high energetic and stuff like that. So it's gonna be
Mhm.
fun, I think. So yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So moving on to community, because we are going to talk about Mayfield, but you say you're from the El Paso area. have you had experience in like Las Cruces, like before working in Las Cruces and working for Mayfield? Like, were you familiar with like the Las Cruces area, or like did you ever come up? I know usually typically people come up to like Mesilla or La Posta or fill in the blank. But is there like a culture difference between El Paso and Las Cruces? Is it like small town vibes? Like, what do you feel being in like Las Cruces? Because I feel like it's a different bubble than like El Paso, just a little bit.
It is, Las Cruces is special and unique. Obviously, I was kind of growing up in El Paso, on the west side of El Paso, and then, as a matter of fact, I moved out to New Mexico for a little bit as well too, but then ended up moving back to El Paso. So
Mm,
during my time in New Mexico, I did get to learn a lot about Las Cruces because my dad would always take us out there to Mesilla to eat, and then Las Cruces has a little bit different Mexican culture and as far as like food as well too. So I love Mexican food. So those were the little things that I would sit there and try to go out there to do. I did have a work experience as far as, coaching out there because in 2000, I believe it was 18 or 16, I forget what I'm sorry about the years. I was actually at Lynn Middle School as an
mm,
assistant head coach, and we won the championship out there in 8th grade,
okay.
so that was one of my first experience that I was kind of really back and forth between El Paso and Las Cruces, but again, the community of Las Cruces is just amazing. I love them. I really love the energy, the people, especially over at Mayfield as well too. I deal with a lot of North Valley people over there,
Mm,
so again, I got farmers, those type of
mhm,
people, that community and stuff like that. So again, it's different because I'm also a city boy. So it goes
mhm,
from dealing with the city life, obviously, to dealing with a lot of kids like that. So it's very interesting. And again, like all things, the experience, the things that the community is bringing, the support. I mean, it's amazing so far. I can't sit there and just talk nothing but highly good things about Las Cruces. I mean,
mm.
it's been amazing to be honest with you. Yes, ma'am.
Mm, oh, that
Yeah.
makes me happy. That's the middle school I went to. I went to Lynn Middle School, and
Yeah.
man, I personally feel like that middle school is rough. Like some of those kids come from like a really rough background. So, I mean, again, like you're coaching to all kinds of students. So, I mean, I just commend you. Okay, so what excites you most about coaching at Mayfield? So, this is where I do want to talk about the Las Cruces and Mayfield rivalry. Is that intimidating at all? Do you know about the rivalry? Why are they rivals because they're like the first two schools that kind of like opened up in Las Cruces, but they got years and years of rivalry. Like this is like the big thing in like Las Cruces. We even have a movie about it where I'm like, wow, like I'm glad they know it's because of football. So like what
Yes,
is
ma'am.
that like?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, even when I was growing up and I went to Franklin High School, Mayfield and Las Cruces were just the top New Mexico teams at the time. Like when you looked up and you heard about New Mexico football, it was either Mayfield or Las Cruces. So I can only imagine the inner city rivalry because also too, what was kind of interesting is when I first took over Mayfield, I didn't realize how close the two schools were to each other.
Mhm.
Until I decided to go to like I think I went to a Wendy's or Whataburger, and I was like, "Hey, that's Las Cruces. That's really close to the schools." So I think just, knowing the rivalry and the sense of how much that game means to the community, because it's almost like I think it's almost like Friday Night Lights, type movie where everyone
Mhm.
shuts down the community to sit there and go watch that game, because I've seen the film and everything, and I've seen the crowd, and I'm like, wow, okay, like this is a big game for the people in the community. So I think just having a part of that in a sense of knowing like how much it means to the people and everything, it, it kind of drives you to sit there and want to give the kids a chance to sit there and say, hey, we might we might be able to pull something off here because I think Las Cruces has had Mayfield number for a couple years now. So again, being the new coach, being the new guy, if I could sit there and obviously pull off a miracle or give these kids a chance to believe in winning that game, I could sit there and think that it'll be very exciting. And
Mhm.
of course, too, I think of course, they're used to a little bit of style of New Mexico football, and being the new guy, I think I'm going to bring something new for the town and the community. So it's
Mhm.
it's going to be really, really, really exciting. I think so. Yes, ma'am.
Dang, I'm excited. I'm excited. No, I really am. Like now, instead of I will keep up with the NFL, but instead of that, I'm also gonna like see like the Las Cruces games and see like who's playing. It
Yes,
makes it a
ma'am.
little bit more personal. So yeah,
Yes,
I'm gonna
ma'am.
be tuning in. Okay, so
And
we're
it's
almost at our closing, but what do you hope people take away from your story, like your actual personal story, who you are, who you've become, and now you giving it back to our community? Like, what do you hope people take away?
Uh, I just really want people to understand that, I'm always going to be a role model. I'm always going to be, someone that can sit there, they can come and talk to you. I'm very open, especially when you see me in the community, don't be afraid to sit there and say, hey, I think I recognize that guy, this Coach Frias, just to come talk
Mm-hmm.
to me, again, for the kids and people like that, if there's anything I can sit there and say is be consistent in life. I think that's the one thing that we sit there and we kind of lack, and be confident in what it is that you want to do. And just obviously, take the good. You're gonna fail in life, and again, learn from the good and bad and things like that. And just, whatever it is that you do great at it, and want to be the best at it, because I think
Mhm.
that's also one thing that's kind of sat there and helped me with me being a player, then obviously transitioning from a player to a coach is, I always want to be the best quarterback. I always wanted to be, the fastest runner. I always want to, obviously now I want to be one of the best head coaches, So again, just having that drive and setting goals in your life as well too,
Mhm.
and reach those goals. Don't be afraid of them. Like I said, you're gonna come through speed bumps in your life. It's kind of like well, I say life is kind of like a roller coaster in a sense. You can have your ups, downs, turns, and stuff like that. But I sit there and say, just do it the right way. Even though you might think that, hey, I don't know, or if this is the right way or the wrong way, just look it up. Especially nowadays, you have so much information in the world that we live in. Just be consistent. And don't be afraid of failure. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is so beautiful. Joseph Frias, before we end, do you have any questions for me?
How is life going for you, Val? We've been talking about for me, like I know
Uh-huh.
you said that you're an athlete and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
what do you do now with your days? Do you got any hobbies? You like to go watch football? Like what do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do? Right now, I'm living the hype of soccer. So right now,
Okay.
that's the football I'm watching. I'm watching a lot of soccer. The US is doing great, so I'm actually
Right.
really proud of our US team. I love UFC. I love martial arts. I'm training. I think it's hard. You can maybe tell me what you think, but it's easy having a coach. It's easy having somebody tell you to wake up early, be at practice, eat right. I don't know why it's easy when somebody's telling you like what to do and when to do it. Like you need to go to sleep early, you need to recover, you can't be drinking that stuff. But whenever it's just you on your own, you're just like you have to be your own coach. So I was lucky to have my coach all the way up until I was 18. And then I was very lucky to teach for my coach. I did teach martial arts, so I got to teach for him, but also like I mean, I was like teaching under him, so I was like, he was still kind of my coach. And then now being out here on my own, I'm in Washington State, like I have to be my own coach. I'm also coaching littles, not in martial arts anymore, but I'm still coaching. And I'm like, okay, I have to be a role model. I have to be able to do the things I'm telling them to do. Like, I can't be like, all right, guys, let's do push ups. And then I
Yeah.
can't do push ups. So I'm like, okay, like I have to actually do the thing I'm talking about. So between coaching and being a podcaster, I'm also launching my own coaching programs, which was something that I heard you talk about, where coaches are more focused on like fixing the problem. Like, okay, well, this is the problem. What's the answer? My background is in psychology, which kind of goes back into like, well, why do you feel that way or where this come from? And it's more exploring like the root. But coaches like get straight to it. And it's like, okay, well, this is the barrier. This is how we're gonna overcome that barrier.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that I have both like the background of understanding the mind and what our setbacks are. Because, for example, I used to do a lot of sparring. So this is in martial arts. And so a setback, like a mental setback, would be like, okay, I'm scared of getting hurt. So that's the feeling. I'm scared of the injury. I
Yeah.
want to play, I want to be out there, but I'm literally scared of like messing up my leg. I'm scared of hurting myself because that is scary.
Yeah.
And then so the therapist would go in and like break that down, like the feeling of being scared. But the coach would say, like, okay, well, like we have to like exposure therapy, like, well,
Yeah.
like we can't like not be scared of we just sit here and be scared. Like we actually have to go out there and like overcome the thing.
Yeah.
So like it's the two, like I feel like I have the mental, the know-how and like the applicable. So I'm excited to kind of step into that role and like become hopefully like a life coach, but I'm gonna start small and like see where that journey takes me. Maybe it takes off, maybe it doesn't. I know I'm gonna keep doing the podcast because I like this. I like talking to
Yes.
people like you, Joseph. I like talking to people. So I'm like, I'm gonna keep doing this. But I also wanna hone in and like see if I, can be a good coach. Maybe I'm not gonna be everybody's coach. Like, you can't be everybody's cup of tea. But I do know that there's gonna be some people that I'm gonna resonate with and I will be able to help. So that's kind of what's coming for me. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. And then another question I have for you, especially since I'm getting new to the Cruces area. Have you been to
Yes.
Zeebs right across from Mayfield High School?
No, the pizza place, Zeeb's?
No, it's actually a
No?
burger place now. Or
It's a
actually,
burger
no, it is
place?
a pizza and a burger place actually, a
A
little
pizza and
bit,
burger place?
so
No, I was always curious about it, but I didn't. I'm pretty sure a lot of the Mayfield kids probably did, but
yeah.
I was curious, but I
It's good.
haven't.
I've
It's
I've gone
good?
to that place. I've been trying to, like, find the local, restaurants and stuff like that because I wanna show their support first,
Oh,
before I go to
yeah.
mainstream stuff like that, but, I mean, there have been some other places that I was like, Let me ask her if she remembers any good places and stuff like
Uh,
that, so
well, I know that you were talking about France, but I know that DH Lescombs, I
Okay,
think they're French. Their last name is French, and they have like a beautiful story of like coming over and wanting to like show their cuisine, and then like mixing it with like New Mexican culture. So they throw like green chili in a bunch of their dishes. But DH Lescombs,
okay,
formerly I forgot what it was, St. Clair
okay,
in Mesilla, and then La Posta tends to be pretty good. Another gem that we have is Hacienda de Mesilla. That one's
okay,
famous because Gordon Ramsay came and like had like one of his shows, and then the I forgot what their last name is, but some they bought it over and now it's a completely different space. But Hacienda
nice,
de Mesilla, the Hutchinsons, I
okay,
did work for the Hutchinsons. They
nice.
bought it over and they kind of transformed it. A lot of burger, just anything with green chili. I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's where like New Mexico shines is like green chili.
Nice. Another one I
Yeah.
love too is Dion's from up there, because we barely got Dion's over
Yes.
here in El Paso,
Oh my gosh,
so, like,
yes.
their pizza reminds me a lot of the pizza that I grew up with over here in El Paso, so I'm like, "Oh, I'm in
Mhm.
love with that place as well too," so
It's so good. Yeah, Dion's. And they have their own ranch, their green chili ranch. That's the thing. I'm like, New Mexico throws green chili on everything. I don't know if you've experienced caliche, but that's
oh, yeah.
another
Oh,
New
yeah,
Mex
my mom
gem.
is consistent out there. She's like one of those ladies like, "I'm gonna stop by Calici's afterwards, I come see you," and I'm like, "Okay, go ahead,"
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
Las Cruces just give me a lot of like really small town vibes. Like I'll watch
Yeah,
shows and I'm like, that's so out of Las Cruces. But I remember in high school, especially like the guys that drove nice cars, like
yeah,
they're like hot rods, they would take it and on a Friday night they would go to Colichis. Or
yeah,
anytime there would be like a car show or like a car meet or even like people like what is it, bike cruise, like the
okay.
Harley Davidson bike cruise,
Oh,
like
yeah,
they'll go and cruise and they'll pull up to Colichis, and so that you got like the 60s neon vibes. Like I just think it looks really cool.
pretty neat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that's special to Las Cruces. I'm trying to think
Well
what else.
a lot of people also don't realize too when they sit there and they watch like shows or like movies and stuff like that. Like a lot of it's filmed in Las Cruces, like Breaking Bad,
Mhm.
for instance, or like there's a lot of
Mhm.
movies that
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm like looking at them like that's Las Cruces right there. So
Yeah.
I mean, it has a lot of culture and like I said, different things that can sit there and attract you to it. So, but like you said, it's a small town vibe, but at the same time, like if you dig deep down into it, you can sit there and find a lot of gems to it. So yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Joseph. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and just talking with me. And I'm just so happy that you found like the place you're supposed to be at and that our community has you and that you're going to give back to so many of them. That's the other thing that coaching does is like in therapy, it's one on one or in a clinical setting. But in coaching, it's like it's a community, it's a team, it's a high school, it's more than just, like just the impact. I guess that's what I'm
Yes,
trying to
ma'am.
say. It's the impact. So I'm proud of you and I'm so excited. So just stay in touch
Yeah,
and
no, I appreciate it, because like I said, I remember when we had that conversation back from my job interview, and like I said, I was kind of on that point of brink in my life where I was like, "Well, what am I doing, Joseph?" But I remember
yeah.
our conversation very well, ma'am. And again, like I said, I love football, and like you said, things work out for a reason. So it's just kind of happy, and I'm glad that Mayfield fell in my lap. And like I said, I'm excited and really looking forward to the opportunities, and it's gonna be fun. And like I said,
Mhm.
if you're ever down here and you ever want to check out a football game, please do not hesitate, and I'll make sure that you get front row seats for that. So yes, ma'am.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it, everyone. Thank you, Joseph. And Joseph, where can they find you? If you want to share your social media or even like Mayfield High School or like where can they find you?
Yeah, so I only have 2 social medias. I'm either on Instagram or Facebook, but most of the time, the Trojan football, the booster club and everything, they usually pump out like a lot of information about me or my story and stuff like that. So you can always Google me too. I think I'm pretty sure all my stories on there as well too. So don't be afraid to sit there and reach out. So, and again,
Perfect.
Val, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun talking with you. So, and don't be afraid of part two. Don't hesitate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. my
Yeah,
gosh. I'm like, after we beat Las Cruces, but I'm like, I don't know.
there you
I'm
go.
still, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Kinda funny you talked about that rivalry sort too, because like, back in the day too, El Paso in 2003 is when I graduated, so we were one of the first El Paso teams to come up and play, Las Cruces at Mayfield, but at the time, Las Cruces was a two-time defending state champ. I ended up
Mm,
beating them at Franklin, really kind of gave them their first loss of their season, but they ended up going out
mm,
and winning the championship that year, but, it
mm.
was still one of those things that I was kinda proud of. I was like, "I remember beating Cruces," so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes,
Dang.
ma'am.
Wow, what
So
a blast from the past. It all comes
yes,
back
ma'am.
full circle. Dang.
Right. So hopefully we'll
Okay.
make it happen over at Mayfield. So yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. And again, thank you so much. I appreciate your talking time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You have a great day. Okay.
You too.
Bye
All
bye.
right.